to this episode of the IG Lighthouse. With me, your regular host, Scott Sammons. In this session, I want to talk about a topic that I've talked about before. In fact, I do training on, so I fully appreciate I'm a little bit of a hypocrite here. And I accept that because I appreciate there's no solid answer to this. But I want to talk about AI. Now, I appreciate that the world and its sister is talking about AI at the moment, and it's in fact something that everyone is talking about to the detriment of everything else. But I kind of want to talk about it from 2 points of view. And I'm kind of I don't know if I would call myself an outlier, but I have an interesting view on AI. And I wanted to put it around there and see if I'm just an old fuddy-duddy that needs to get with the times, or if actually I do have a point. Because I fully accept that I could just be an old fuddy-duddy that just needs to get with the times. That is genuinely a factor. But I also accept that, I don't know, there's just something... There's the little voice in the back of my head that's just going, there's something, no, not quite right here. So you'll also have to excuse me because I've got this sore throat that's doing the rounds. So if I cough, splutter, or need to take a sip of my coffee, that's why. So, starting at the beginning, AI, yes, fully accept there are lots of benefits to it. There's no two ways about it. I'm an avid gamer. I've been playing Alien Isolation as an example of AI. I've been playing the Alien Isolation game for years. It's a brilliant AI-fueled game. It's won awards. It's amazing. If you ever get the opportunity to play it, play it. So from it being a gaming thing, right through to it being assisting with things like medical technologies and all sorts. Yes, there is lots of opportunities here. But we've been here before. So when digitalization came in and we all started moving from very paper, manual-based processes to more digital processes, that was being solved as the herald of all of our problems, and we'll be fine again. That didn't quite happen. When big data was a thing, and I remember, 2013, 14? That was the big data craze. That was going to solve all of our problems. And there was a big, everyone was talking about that. And then blockchain, but then obviously that didn't quite happen. And then 365, SharePoint, remote working, mainly because of COVID, but that was a big, right, everyone's talking about SharePoint, everyone's talking about Microsoft 365, these sorts of automated digital tools, they're going to solve all of our problems. And that didn't quite happen either. And now we're on to AI, and that's going to solve all of our problems. And we've been here before so many times that we've heard the same stories again and again and again. This shiny new product is going to save us from ourselves and save us a load of problems, and it's going to be amazing and brilliant and woo! And as for those of you that are listening to this that are data professionals, data protection professionals, etc., you will know by now that that is not true. That yes, there are opportunities to be had. Yes, there are opportunities to maximize. Yes, when 365 came along, it helped us out with a number of things. But you've got to get it right. Like any tool that's out there, it's got to be based on decent processes behind it, decent data behind it, decent people behind it, and an actual forward plan as to what you want to achieve. And I am seeing so many examples where that is not the case. Just as we saw with 365 implementation. So many times we got involved in projects where, we've deployed 365 and we've just turned it on and given it to everyone. Okay, well, have you thought about how it's going to work? Have you thought about how it integrates with different things, how you want staff to actually use it to achieve tasks? No, we just kind of turned it on. And this is exactly the thing with AI. We've done exactly the same thing. Now, those issues are issues in of themselves, and I could spend this entire 20 minutes kind of preaching to the converted a little bit, because you guys know this stuff. And if you don't, and if you're not a DP person and you're listening to this, then it's an issue. Like anything technology related, if you speak to anyone that's built technology, anyone that works with technology or tools, any of it, doesn't have to be a data protection thing, anyone, they will tell you rubbish in, rubbish out. Tools are there to assist the person or to assist an objective, to assist a task. If you don't know what that task or that objective is, you're just dumping a load of stuff on it and hoping that it sorts it out for you. When has that ever worked? Ever. So that's an issue. My issue, or my primary issue, is I just don't think AI should be the domain of data protection solely. I fundamentally disagree with it. So starting with the government. So the title of this podcast is all about, who should be the protectors or guardians of AI. Yeah, government has a role to play. That is true. Like most areas of technological or data regulation, yes, government has a role to play. That is true. No one's questioning that. What I am questioning, however, is the government's position at the moment, which is that the regulation of AI needs to be through data protection law. And I just thoroughly disagree with that. There are loads of areas. I mean, don't get me wrong, to be clear, I do agree that protecting personal data and AI is a thing. Yes, but it is not the only thing. So to put all your eggs in one basket, all your AI regulation into one basket, I think is narrow-minded and misguided. There are loads of areas that AI is going to touch that go nowhere near data protection. Research. Yes, sometimes that will. Many times it won't. Building of technologies, automation, robotics. Loads of different areas that go nowhere near personal data. They can have quite profound effects on our industries, on our research, scientific research. It can have profound effects on how we operate machinery, insurances, liability, all these sorts of things. It can have effects on if it's not done correctly. So for the government to just go, no, it's a data protection problem, and just fiddle and tinker with the Data Protection Act and the UK GDPR, I think is narrow-minded and misguided. While I don't necessarily agree with a full wide-ranging AI regulation, I do believe that we need basic levels of transparency on these tools, how they're being built, how they work, so that we can get the assurances we need to make sure that we're not plugging something in that's going to undermine our very networks and our very data sets. So I think there needs to be some degree of forced transparency, because the commercial answer gets you some of the way, but not all of the way. Not my experience, especially as a lot of companies are not legally required to. So unless they're forced to in some way, they're not going to bother. And now that the market is flooded with providers, it's even more of many of them, it's not actually their algorithm or their base matrix or their base product. It's actually someone else's. So I'm not actually buying it from you, am I? I'm buying it from someone else. I need transparency on that. For all sorts of reasons, I need transparency on that. So this not legally requiring it means it ain't going to happen, which makes my job far worse than it needs to be. Why? All we need is some basic legal frameworks that require transparency on how it's been developed. That way, then, if they want to do it in a cut corners, in a cheap, nasty way, then very quickly they'll get found out and their business model will collapse. Whereas if they actually want to go about it by the book and do it correctly and get it good data in, trained on a good, decent model, transparent with how it works, customizable, all that other good stuff, funnily enough, commercialism should then solve the rest of it, at the very, very least. And I do appreciate I'm being a bit optimistic there, but at the very least, we need some sort of legally required transparency on how these products are developed. Moving on from the government, there's also this pervading view in the industry, and by the industry, I mean the information industry, that AI should be the purview of the data protection officer or information governance. And I disagree with that as well. I'm on a bit of a trend here. I just disagree with everything. I know that really does sound bad. No, I don't. I think that's wrong. No, I think that's wrong. No, I think that's wrong. But I am offering alternatives. There are simple things we can do that would make it far better. So I'm not just throwing stones. I'm trying to offer alternatives as well. But I do appreciate the more you say it out loud, the more it does sound like I'm just a bit of a naysayer. And I do apologise for that. I'm really not. It has a lot of really good benefits. I do want to make it work. But, no, sorry. And the two things are together. And I also think that it should not be the purview of the data protection officer. However, I also accept that who else is going to do it? Because when you think about all the different people that need to be involved to get AI right. So it's going to have to be, there's a data protection element. Yeah, there's a data management, data governance element. So you need your data people. There'll be a technological element. So you need your IT people. There's going to be a security and a cybersecurity element. So you need your cybersecurity people. There's going to be a legal element, because you're going to have intellectual property, copyright, other legal issues potentially. So that will include legal, HR, frontline service representation. And I appreciate that could be quite big or quite small, depending on your organisation. But someone from the front line that is going to be using this stuff or affected by this stuff needs to be a stakeholder and needs to be involved in your governance of and management of AI. So that needs to be a thing. So that's what, 5, 6, 7, 8 different areas. Why is it our purview? Exactly. Why? I get from an operational point of view, someone's got to take charge, and we are the sort of department that typically or historically touches or has fingers in lots of different pies. Therefore, we're best placed to take the lead on it. And that I don't necessarily have any qualms with, we'll take the lead on it for those reasons. But for us to be the designated governance of, or a designated AI governance officer, or any of these things where it's seen as we are the guardians of the uses of AI, it just doesn't sit well with me. Especially sitting it with the data protection officer specifically. Because if you think about the DPO role, legally, as defined by the UK GDPR, it's a very specific, very narrow role. You can do other things, obviously, providing there's not a conflict of interest. But like we've talked about before with, conflicts of interest with the DPO being also the head of IG or the head of governance or the head of legal, there are conflicts there. And it also, again, pervades this view that AI is the purview of data protection and that we're somehow the conscience of our organisations. And I don't think that's true either. again, for all sorts of different reasons, because there are all sorts of different priorities as to what makes something an acceptable or unacceptable thing to do, not just data protection. So I like to think back to data ethics. Is the data protection officer the sole guardian of data ethics? No. Data protection is one element of what is an ethical use of data. Just one. Because again, data protection focuses on personal data. But what about anything that's not personal data? The DPO has no authority, no right, no backup or legal framework or anything that it does with data protection. So it only really does it as part of a point of policy or as a point of, well, we just do it. But are we the data ethical guardians of the organisation? No, for all sorts of reasons. Same thing with this. Are we the guardians of what AI should and should not be used for across the organisation, taking into account all of the different elements that make something a ethical or unethical, right or wrong thing to do with any forms of use of AI across any forms and uses of data? No, we're not. We're too narrow and too focused on personal data. We are a stakeholder. Yes, thoroughly agree with that. We are a stakeholder just as much as IT is, just as much as security is, just as much as data management is, just as much as anyone is. But this approach that seems to be prevalent a lot in our community, that we should be the custodians of and take control of, and the two go hand in hand, I actually disagree with. I think it makes sense for us to take the lead on and coordinate, because we are best placed to do. But I actually think the custodians or the guardians of AI should be that governance group or that working group you set up. They decide it, democratize it. It should be a decision that's made by the organisation for the organisation. I don't agree that it should sit with one role, one person, especially the data protection officer. It just doesn't sit well with me. It's too narrow, we put our point of view only, whereas there are other points of view that are just as valid and just as important. So for me, who is the guardian of AI? I actually believe it should be democratized, and it should be that governance group you set up. They should have the power and authority and the representation from all areas of the business to be able to say yes or no to what, for your organization, what is an acceptable use of AI and what isn't. Now, for smaller organizations, because if you're a medium to large size organization, yeah, that makes complete and utter total sense. If you're a small organization, okay then, well, again, providing you've got input from various points of view, the board could do that quite easily. I appreciate there is a conflict of interest there, but hence my providing you've got input from various points of view and you've done your research. I still don't believe, and I'm willing to hear counter arguments, obviously, because again, I'm a big supporter of democratization. So democratization means hearing all points of view. I still think for small, medium, right the way through to large, there are ways of democratizing this and making it less of a, oh, this person's the governance person, they say yes or no. I think we've missed a step there. I think that on a linked point, I also think that we should, yes, DPOs, IT professionals need to be trained up on AI. They need to understand the issues, the wider complications. That's why I built the course with Act Now training, the basics in AI for DPOs. because I think they need to be aware of it. They need to understand how it works. They need to know where resources are, where further training is. They need to be fully clued up on it, just as they do any other types of technologies. 365, big data, blockchain, all that sort of stuff. I think they need to be aware of it and know what's what and what's not. Thoroughly support that. I will continue doing that course until it becomes irrelevant. But to be a data protection officer, there's also an expectation that you will also do an AI governance officer role, and blending the two together, I think that's a mistake. I think they should be separate things. I think we have a part to play, definitely, not understating that at all. That needs to be maximised as much as possible. And that often we will fall into the role of pushing it forward because no one else will. Yes, I agree with that as well. But again, I just don't think we should be the custodians or guardians of what is right and wrong uses of AI. I think we should facilitate that discussion. I think we should get people around the table to have that discussion. But I don't believe that we should be the sole guardians of. I think everyone should be trained up on what it is and how it works, just like we did with 365 and other such technologies. And I think it should be democratized. So to answer the question about what this podcast was all about is who should the guardians of AI be? Well, in big terms, government has a role, yes. But in smaller terms, more bringing the world down to your specific organization, I do actually believe it should be democratized, and there should be a group of people, a board, working group, whatever word you want to put on them, that's made up of representatives from key people around the business that is able to agree a position on it, research a position on it, and agree a position on it from various points of view. I just don't subscribe to this view that data protection is the only view of what is right and wrong with AI. I don't subscribe to that. So, it'll be interesting to see what you think. What's your experiences? At some point, we will do a podcast on the technicalities of making it work, because I've got some ideas of some people that we can talk to about that and share some ideas with, because it is a hot topic. There's no two ways about it. But what I also want to do is also talk about the issues we've currently got going on, because we've still got issues with 365. We've still got issues with digitalization. We've still got issues with training. We've still got issues with GDPR compliance, FOI compliance, basic records management. All those problems have not gone away. So I do still want to talk about those, very much so. And I do think, sorry, this is a side point, because I do appreciate we're getting on for 25 minutes now, that we're kind of focusing on AI a little bit too much. I think that all the other issues are just as important, just as complicated, and they haven't gone away. So I do think we are giving a little too much airtime to AI. So on this podcast especially, talking about it now, and it's kind of come up in a couple of the other ones, but fundamentally, we're going to be talking about our everyday issues that are still going on and that we still need to try and resolve, as well as the wonderful world of artificial intelligence. So let me know your thoughts, your comments. As always, they are very, very welcome. If you've got some particular suggestions about how you've done it and how you've approached it that you think is working for you, do let me know. And if you do want any further information about training courses, ideas, guidance, anything like that, then again, do get in touch. Greatly appreciated. So like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you at the next episode. Thank you very much.